Right, welcome back to the Unfan Podcast and welcome to another League One roundup. Festive football was in full swing, Boxing Day football, and of course a single game on Sky TV today between Derby County and Bolton Wanderers. I waited until that game expecting a really good encounter between two playoff contending sides. 0-0 was the final score. A little bit frustrating from a roundup perspective. I imagine from Derby and Bolton's perspective, they also probably would have wanted a better game of football and maybe even a winner in there as well. But there we go. We can't control the footballing scorelines. Of course, we will be breaking down all of the games, four in particular, how the games panned out, what it means for these sides as we now have hit the halfway point of the campaign. Can you believe it? We're halfway through the season already. Time flies when you're having fun and you're witnessing really good games of football. Please do leave a like. The growth of the podcast recently has been nothing short than exceptional. Thank you so much for that. Subscribe in the comment section down below. Give me your thoughts. How are you feeling? Because, like I say, we've hit the halfway point now. A busy week on the podcast and now a busy week when it comes to football. We know how the festive period works. It feels as though no one really knows the day, but there's football on, and that is sort of what we're experiencing at the moment. Let's sort of see how we're feeling. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be replying and responding to all of them as per usual. Make it a debate, make it a discussion. I can't wait to read all of your thoughts. But this is Boxing Day / today's game of football. So it finishes Wycombe Wanderers 2, Bristol Rovers 1. The XG for the game 1.24 to Bristol Rovers 1.8. So an open game. You know, both sides did have their chances, and actually the losing side, Bristol Rovers, unfortunately, did also have a higher XG, which means you could argue they maybe didn't justify losing the game. But Wycombe Wanderers, you know, on top of that, they don't also normally have a very high XG either. We know the way that Gareth Ainsworth likes to play. We know they don't like to dominate possession and create relentless amounts of chances. They have a very unique system, if that's a polite way of putting it, but it does work and you can't argue with that. So the XG, and also by looking at the graph here as well, the attacking momentum graph, it doesn't really surprise me. It doesn't really surprise me. There is more blue on the graph as well, which does suggest that Bristol Rovers were on top. We know the way that Joe Barton's side likes to play. They are quite an attractive side playing with that 4-3-3. Of course, Wycombe setting up in their quite now usual 4-2-3-1. Very, I think, structured Gareth Ainsworth system with that back four now of Ryan Tafazoli being fit, and I think that's a really good building block they now have. They have quite a structured, well spined back four, if you like. They do now see a very clear way of defending, and we know defensively they have to be very strong with the way they want to play. And, you know, Bristol Rovers as well, when they did come forward, Wycombe, to be fair, for the most part, did hold on pretty well. You can see, and I do want to touch back on the graph as well, it was more Bristol Rovers in that second half in particular. They did have more of the attacking chances. In the first half, slightly more open. You can see when the goals came very early doors, Bristol Rovers did take the lead. Of course, you can see here it was through Josh Coburn. And then 1-1 pretty quickly later, I mean, about 20 minutes or so later, in that first half, David Wheeler equalises, assisted by Mahemati, who's been in really good form. And you can see quite early on in that second half, Wycombe Wanderers take the lead for the first time in the game, Lewis Wing. And then, you know, really Bristol Rovers did huff and they did puff. They did try and find a way back in the game, try and equalise and make it quite interesting and pin Wycombe back. They weren't able to, and they do lose the game. You can see by looking at the stats as well, they didn't, you know, have the majority of the ball the winning side. 40% Wycombe Wanderers, 60% to Bristol Rovers. And, you know, we speak about it every single week, and I don't want to repeat myself because it's not fair on Wycombe. I think people, you know this now. They don't feel like they need the possession. They do have a very clear way of playing, and even with 40% possession, they had more total shots, yet be it the same on target. But we know the way they're looking to play. They're looking to play very direct, and yeah, allow, you know, Bristol Rovers to have the ball, be patient, allow them to be patient almost, if you like, and soak up the pressure when they need to. When looking at the league table, it felt as though we said it in the prediction video, we said it in the preview. I don't want to say it, but I think I did get the scoreline right. You know, it did feel like a little bit like an outsiders playoff head-to-head really between Wycombe and Bristol Rovers. Both sides really coming out of nowhere. You know, the first sort of, let's say, 15 games of the campaign, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe let's say 12 games. Both of these sides are sort of not really where they want to be. Rovers sort of hovering around the relegation zone, around sort of 16th, 17th, and Wycombe Wanderers sort of around mid-table. Not normally where Gareth Ainsworth sees his side in the first half of the campaign, but a recent run of form that has proved absolutely pivotal for both of these sides, hence where they are now. It did feel like it was going to be a really interesting game. And 2-1 to Wycombe, that is a really good result for them. They're not in the top six. They were for one night. They were after that result yesterday, but Derby County, of course, facing Bolton. That ended 0-0. Derby County got the point, which means they now do leapfrog them only by goal difference now. They're not in those playoff places. Bristol Rovers, a really, really good run of form, got them in the mix. It's so open. It's still very, very open, and they could still, sneak in there maybe late on, but, stay in the pack, stay in the mix. That's what they want to do. And although it was a defeat, it is still, the dream is alive, if you like. And Joe Barton's boys certainly are, proving that they're not going to be a side to be messed with this season. They're going to prove very, very difficult to face. And it does finish 2-1. They will be frustrated. They did have a higher XG. You'd argue as well they did have some really big chances in the game, and they probably could have, and they'll argue they deserved to get more than a defeat. A draw seemed like a fair result from an external perspective, but Wycombe Wanderers, you can't really... You know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get. They're going to be nitty. They're going to be gritty. They're going to make it very, very difficult for you. Unfortunately, Bristol Rovers, they fell into that trap. The Gareth Baines of the set for many, many sides in recent years. So it does finish Wycombe Wanderers 2, Bristol Rovers 1. So it finishes Cheltenham 0, Plymouth Argyle 1. The XG for the game 1.19 to Plymouth's 0.57. Very, very interesting indeed. But the best sides find a way. Maybe when they're not playing their best football, they do find a way of winning. And you can see they're still top of the tree, still top of the table. They were top at Christmas, and they're now top after the Boxing Day football. 50 points, 2 points clear at the top of the table. And although the XG of 1.19 to 0.57, they were out XG'd, if you like. Cheltenham did have the better chances according to the expected goals. You can see by looking at the graph there as well. It was fairly equal. Cheltenham weren't obliterated, and also, I don't think we predicted that because Cheltenham have improved recently. They really, really have. They went back to basics. They wanted to sort of shore themselves up defensively. They were shipping too many goals. They weren't getting the results they wanted. And although this isn't really a result they would have wanted to, they lost the game. You still felt they made it quite difficult, and they did have their chances. And Plymouth, like I say, and it's a cliche in football, the sides that end up at the top end of the table, normally, when they don't play their best stuff, when it wasn't their best outing, they always try and just get their way through the game, dig deep, dig in, grind the result. And that's what Plymouth Argyle and Stephen Schumacher did yesterday at Cheltenham. And, you've got to give Cheltenham credit. I mean, look at the SofaScore ratings. Never always a good maybe way of breaking down a game. I do say that quite often. Sometimes they can be off. But Michael Cooper, the goalkeeper of Plymouth, who we know is a very, very good young goalkeeper, got an 8.5 rating. That says quite a lot to say. The Plymouth goalkeeper got their man of the match, and actually the game's man of the match. You can see Cheltenham did have a big chance. We'll have a look at the saves as well. You can see 6 saves from Plymouth Argyle's goalkeeper, only 2 for Cheltenham's. I mean, it looked like a fairly open game. You look at the possession stats as well. Plymouth did have more of the ball. The first half, 56% possession. Second half, 56 as well. Exactly the same in both halves. It's very, very rare. 16 shots, so more shots for the home side. More shots on target for the home side as well. So really, really fascinating game. You can see by looking at the league table as well, what does that mean for Cheltenham? It does them quite dirty, actually. It does drop them down a couple of places. 18th now in the league, 25 points. But they have improved, and they certainly were not embarrassed by the league leaders. But the league leaders and the team that I think probably will still be favourites because they are top of the table to go on and win the league, they certainly did do what potential champions, dare I say it, potential champions do, and when they're not their best, find a way of getting a result. And Morgan Whittaker popped up with about 10 minutes to go and scored what has not been a very bad individual season for him. It's been a very, very good one. And again, for Plymouth, it does look very, very strong. So fair play to them. It finishes Cheltenham 0, Plymouth Argyle 1. Frustrated for Cheltenham, but Plymouth, they do what they need to do, and they get, like I say, the job done. Right, then next up, Charlton against Peterborough. The game does, of course, finish Charlton 1. Peterborough 1. The XG for the game, 1.48 to Peterborough's 1.76. So quite an open game. Both sides did have their chances. It finishes 1 apiece. You can see by looking at the attacking momentum graph there as well. It does also reflect that there were chances of both of these sides, and both sides were on top at different moments of the game. First half, fairly equal. You'd argue Peterborough did have the bigger chances in that second half. Charlton came out really, really strong. Peterborough had quite a big moment in the middle of that half, and it ends really with the home side taking control. You can see by looking at when the goals came, Charlton, when they were on top and they came out strong in that second half, they did take the lead. And then when Peterborough did have their big moment in the second half, they also scored as well and equalised in the game. You can see the goal scorer is Miles Leaburn. First start for him in a little while. The young striker who I'm really, really excited to see more of now. I think the new manager, Dean Holden, I do expect an improvement now with Dean Holden coming through the door, although I wasn't blown away by the appointment. He is a good coach, you can't argue with that, and it's going to be a different message. He's going to want a different response, he's going to want a different outcome really with these players, different output as well really, because they weren't really given the type of performance that they need to show in Sky Bet League One, hence where they are 16th, 17th in the league, which is not where Charlton want to be. And there was improvement. Clearly, they're not the finished product, only one game. Clearly, they're not, the gap and the indicator of where they want to get to clearly is quite far away. But there is certain positives to take from the game. I think under Ben Garner, it probably wouldn't have finished 1-1. Under maybe a no manager, like they have been for a couple of weeks now before, after Ben Garner's lost his job, it probably wouldn't be 1-1 either. So you have to sort of take the positives out from it. Was it the perfect game? No. But Miles Lieber, and quite a few others as well. Daniel Kanu, a young player as well, he got his opportunity. Clearly, Holden is trying to get something a little bit different out of this squad, trying to sort of maybe squeeze different bits out of the squad that maybe wasn't, being utilised in the way that it could have done under previous management. And that's, I think, quite exciting and can be quite an exciting thing for the supporters and the players as well, taking those opportunities. You can see by looking at Peterborough as well, the goal scorer, no real surprise. Jonathan Clark-Harris, current league top goal scorer, scored the equalising goal in the 65th minute. A very, very important goal for his side. The rest of the game, there wasn't a goal, but it was quite open and it was quite a good game of football as well. After Peterborough scored their goal, they maybe could have even doubled their lead because, to be honest with you, it was really, really strong from them, and they did have quite a few chances after that. You can see by looking at the stats as well, 51% possession to 49%, but more shots for the away side who did have less possession, 19 shots to 8. So you would argue Peterborough were the better side, but Charlton, they held strong when they needed to. As for Peterborough and what that means for them, it's their second draw of the season. Would you believe it? That is, fairly remarkable for Peterborough United. They have not drawn many games. They're still 8th, not where they want to be. They haven't won a game, I believe, their last 6. They lost a lot of games, so that does end their losing streak. But on 32 points, and they find themselves 3 points off 6th spot. 10 wins, 10 defeats, and still 8th. That is how crazy League One is, and it is their second draw of the campaign. As for Charlton, it isn't the win they would have wanted at home under the new manager at the Vale on Boxing Day. It is a draw. It is another draw of the campaign. 10 draws now in total. We speak about a team that don't draw and a team that just can't stop drawing. Charlton with 10 draws now in total from 22. It's not a very good season. It probably won't be the season that they were after, but they're hoping now for a change and a bit of a swift in motion. And let's see what happens there, because ultimately the form isn't great, but they got a big away game against Oxford United on Thursday. I'm mixed ahead of that one. I really, really am. But anyway, it finishes Charlton 1, Peterborough United 1. And finally, of the 4 games we're going to speak about in real detail, Fleetwood 1, Sheffield Wednesday 2. The XG for the game, Fleetwood 1.16 to Sheffield Wednesday's 1.07. So it wasn't an embarrassing Fleetwood Town performance. They definitely did give it a go and actually had a better XG than the winners of the game, Sheffield Wednesday. But we speak about it again. I don't want to sort of repeat what I said about Plymouth Argyle, but the sides that want to stay in the pack, want to stay in what is title contention for Sheffield Wednesday, do find a way of winning games when it matters, and maybe not when they were absolutely incredible. They didn't wipe the floor of their opponent, but they still, again, got the goal and got the all-important goals they needed in the match. You can see Fleetwood actually took the lead fairly early on in the game. Sean Rooney, we'll come on to him. It wasn't the only part of the game that he was, he had a bit to speak about, was it? 1-0, Sean Rooney after 8 minutes, and exactly 8 minutes after that, in the 16th minute, George Byers made it 1-1. We know about his influence and Barry Bannon's influence. Now they're back from injury. He scored the goal, and then in the 73rd minute after half-time, Marvin Johnson, the wing-back, makes it 2-1. Sean Rooney gets sent off for a second yellow card in the 83rd minute. Did he react to it well? No, he didn't. I'm pretty sure he tried to, actually have a little bit of an encounter, physical encounter with Darren Moore. Of course, the manager of Sheffield Wednesday, the 4th official, getting in the way of that a little bit and stopping that from getting a little bit messy. Interestingly, he got Fleetwood's man of the match. He did score the goal in the 8th minute. Didn't end the way that he would have wanted to. He had an early bath in the 83rd minute for a second yellow card. I imagine it won't just be one match ban. He didn't react to it very well indeed. And it got a little bit messy at one point, but Sheffield Wednesday, they won't care about that. They got what they needed to get out of the game, and they won it fairly comfortably in the end, 2-1. I say comfortably. You can see in the first half, they probably were the better side. In the second half, Fleetwood came out quite strong, and then for pretty much the majority of the second half after that, they were in control and scored the all-important second goal of the game and regained their lead. You can see by looking at the possession stats as well, 51% to 49%. So actually quite even games. You spoke about all of these games, very, very even when it comes to possession and when it comes to XG as well. 19 shots, though, to Sheffield Wednesday, 10 to Fleetwood Town. When looking at the league table, a draw for Fleetwood would have maybe what they felt they could have got. It would have been another draw this season. Maybe they felt they could have got that out of the game. It wasn't to be. They do lose it. It's their 6th defeat of the campaign. Now currently 16th when looking at the league table. As for Sheffield Wednesday, when the league table comes up, there it is. It's another win. 46 points now for them. They had 3 draws going into this game. So to win this game was really, really important. They were able to do that. 13 wins now, and they're still in what looks to be a bit of a 3-horse race. Now Sheffield Wednesday, Ipswich and Plymouth Argyle running away with it a little bit, moving away from the pack below them, and fair play to them. They all won yesterday, and they continue to look like a really, really good side, Sheffield Wednesday. And yeah, they got they got what they wanted in the end, and that was a Boxing Day win against Fleetwood Town. When looking at the other games, I also have to mention as well, Ipswich Town, they played Oxford United at home. We won't speak about it. We normally speak about Ipswich and Oxford United, but they played against each other, and that match reaction is on the channel right now. So definitely, if you want to sort of hear my thoughts straight after the game, of course, I'm an Oxford United fan. You can hear my reaction to that. That is on the channel. When looking at the other games, it was 0-0 between Bolton Wanderers and Derby County. Not great, moments in the match, but in the end it does finish 0-0. Not a great Sky Sports fixture, really, is it? Exeter City 0, Portsmouth 0, again a 0-0 draw. Not great for Pompey. Their search for a win does continue. They have been now searching for quite a few weeks. A little bit better than the last couple of weeks, it must be said, but it is still a draw. And Exeter, they probably will take that against a side like Pompey, who are higher than them, in the league. It finishes Accrington 1, Barnsley 1. A little bit unlike Barnsley, really, who have been in really good form when it comes to wins in recent weeks, and were dominating against Accrington Stanley for large parts. But you can't write Stanley off. I said it in the prediction video. I've said it time and time again. They are the banana skin, and they sort of experience does pull through. And John Coleman, he's got that in an absolute abundance. So fair play to Accrington. They got a really good draw out of a very in-form Barnsley side. Features MK Dons 1, Forest Green Rovers 0. Back-to-back wins now for MK Dons. New manager, of course, MK Dons, the ex-Leeds under-23s manager, Jackson. So he's now through the door, and he got, in his first game, the first 3 points of his reign. 1-0 against, looks like relegation-bound, Forest Green Rovers. And looking at the other games as well, Burton Albion beaten Lincoln City 3-0. Lincoln City really, really did not have a very good first half. Absolutely outplayed in the first 45. Slightly more equal in the second half, but it looked a little bit like it was too little too late. 3-0 down at half-time, Lincoln City. Once again, teams below them in the league, they just can't do it, can they? And this was not a very good outing. Very, very good for Burton. Maybe slight chance of survival after that victory. It certainly will help them, and it will give that squad a whole lot of confidence. Finishes Port Vale 1, Morecambe 0. Morecambe season gets worse and worse every single week, and Port Vale made sure they did that. What a debut season they're having in Sky Bet League 1. They now move to, I think, 9th in the league, which is really, really impressive. They get what needs to be done in that game. Of course, 2 sides who got promoted out of League 2 in the last 2 years. 1-0 to Port Vale is the final score. And finally then, Cambridge United 2, Shrewsbury Town 1. A really good result for Cambridge United. They won the game, which they really needed to win because things weren't looking very pretty for Mark Bonner's side. They get what they needed out of the game and win it 2-1. But Shrewsbury, they were on top for a large part of the match. But Cambridge United, they won't care. They get the all-important 3 points. You can see the goal scorer as well. Sheila Tracy and Sam Smith in the second half. So please do leave a like, please do subscribe. I'll see you all very, very soon. A very, very busy week when it comes to the podcast over this festive period. I've been Jack, this has been the Unfan Podcast. Take care, stay safe, and I see you all very, very soon. Take care.